And salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to 3 Ps in a Pod, episode 190.
We made it.
And we're 10 away from 200. How y'all feel?
Are you going to tell him that I almost guessed the number right?
He almost did. We asked Ed what number, and he guessed 189.
I was right.
He was really close.
He was very. He's keeping track.
I'm not. I'm just amazed I got that close.
He was pretty close.
I was really excited.
Well, like
that's why I made you say it out loud.
It's like they say, a blind squirrel finds a nut every night.
Exactly right. Well, this one wandered right close.
It just happened.
I did not find the exact thing we wanted.
But you were close.
I was close.
I give you credit.
I was in the neighborhood.
I give you credit where credit is due. Yeah. But yes, so here we are. We're 10 away from 200. We were talking about what to do for the 200th episode. And we don't have a whole lot of ideas, but we would love to hear from you if you have some ideas.
That's good. I like that, Jason.
If you have some things you'd like to see, we would appreciate it if they involve lots of food. Because we love food.
We do.
Because if you remember, if you've been with us long enough, we have had celebrations in the past, like 100, 150 maybe. I don't remember when we've celebrated, but we've had food involved.
We had a sponsorship at one point.
We did have a sponsorship. Remember, we used to have food on a regular.
That's what I mean. We had a guy
good food, good fuel.
I was trying to remember. Good food, good fuel.
I can remember that when we were filming where we filmed and when he was here, he was right off camera with food.
He would just watch us eat
the
food.
Chef.
He was like right over
Michael,
there.
if you're still watching, we're glad you're still watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Michael Laidlaw, our vegan chef.
Exactly.
Vegan chef.
And we're not vegan, but he would serve us up.
No, but I would eat everything he fixed and it was delicious.
Because it was always good.
Delicious.
Remember that mac and cheese?
I could be vegan, I think.
Oh, I could.
I think I could.
Yeah. If
I was vegetarian for 2 whole years. Vegan's a little tougher. Yeah, I tried. Because Michael, so I will say that.
Just so we're clear, I don't know the difference, and I might admit that.
Really?
Okay.
I probably know the difference, but if you force me to say the difference, I don't know the difference.
So vegetarian is you don't eat any meat products. So you don't eat anything that has meat in it. But vegan is you don't eat any kind of animal products. So you won't eat eggs, you won't eat cheese, you won't drink milk.
Comes from an animal.
Okay. It's pretty tough because that's what is special about what Michael does is that what was special about the mac and cheese is you can make vegetarian mac and cheese from a Kraft box.
That's right.
Because there's no meat in it. Vegan mac and cheese, he has this thing, and I still have some at my house, Michael, that he gave me because I originally was trying to be vegan. That was my initial plan. Mm-hmm. And Michael, I'm sorry, I'm not man enough for that. It is pretty tough. There's this stuff called nutritional, we're going deep in the weeds. It's called nutritional yeast. All right. It is a form of yeast that when mixed in with other foods, it tastes like cheese, which is what makes it have that. It has, all of those flavors. I still have some nutritional yeast at my house. You mix that one, I believe, and you can find it on Good Food, Good Fuel's Facebook page, the recipe.
Still plugging.
I believe it's sweet potatoes that you puree. You mix in the nutritional yeast, and it has the creaminess.
Okay.
I've become a great lover of sweet potatoes. I probably eat some form of sweet potato 4 to 5 times a week.
Yes. I'll tell you why I had to inevitably stop. I actually really enjoyed being a vegetarian. I really enjoyed the judgment I could have on others.
Oh, of course.
That was very good. And it is pretty good fuel. I'll just say that. But I will say, one, it's really hard to go out to eat. Because anything you're going to eat, it's going to be fried. I don't eat, even though I go to the gym, I have a terrible metabolism. And so anything that's super fried, anything I eat, I was gaining lots and lots of weight.
As a vegetarian.
Because when we would go out to eat, I couldn't do much. And then the amount of, I think it's called cruciferous foods, things like.
Wow.
I ate lots of.
I'm so impressed with that word.
I think you should just end this because I've stopped being interested.
Okay. Well, we can be done.
I'm impressed with cruciferous.
I don't know what it means.
I don't either.
It's cabbage type things. Brussels sprouts, cabbage and that.
It's the same way I listen to my doctor when he starts talking. I'm like,
just tune him out.
Just finish. I don't know what you're saying.
Well, for those who don't know, Ed is now in stage 3 cancer. But he has not.
That is not true. I'm healthy. I'm very healthy.
Well, as far as you know, because you don't listen to the doctor.
I do. I listen right to the point that he's going to tell me, do I have a problem? Then when he goes into all the other stuff, I'm like, can we end this?
Yeah. Ed is as healthy, I guess, because he's not listening to what the doctor says. I keep telling you, you're not doing well. He's like, well, good bill of health from the doctor.
That's not true at all.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when I have no direction for this podcast.
That's what happens. You can tell them why, Jason. Why is it that we don't? We got.
Well, I have to say to our audience, our fine fine podcast audience that we have no questions.
That's
today.
true.
Nobody sent in any questions. And so but I do promise we're not going to sit around talking about food or Ed's,
we do have a
Ed's
plan.
bad health or Nathan's bad metabolism.
Those
That's
of you
true.
who care, which I don't even know who that would be, but I'm in fine health.
Ed's doing fine. The reports of his death are greatly exaggerated.
By one guy, my son.
But having said all that, we do have a topic we want to cover over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So, thanks not to any of y'all for sending in the questions, but
We
something
do want you to send
we
questions.
do still want
we
you to send in
prefer it
questions.
when you come up with it because it's
Yes.
less work for us.
Yeah.
We don't have to sit around and think about what
And
to
it's
talk
probably
about.
more interesting. Maybe.
I
don't know.
would hope
Yeah.
so.
But
So we're going to answer questions that we've been asked before, or
Sure.
we've thought about before, or people have talked to us about.
okay. Today's question is a question that we have gotten in the past
Mhm.
because we've actually talked about this years
Oh,
and
sure.
years ago.
Sure.
The question is Christianity a religion or is that a relationship?
Mm.
And I remember back in the day, we actually did a series called Losing Your Religion.
That's right.
I remember
And
that
where
series.
we were pretty clear Christianity is
Yes.
not a religion.
That's
It is
right.
a relationship. Have we changed our
That's
minds
about
on that?
17 years ago.
I was going to say. Yeah.
I was going to say it was
Long
early
time.
2000s because
Yeah.
I would have been in middle school. I remember sitting in
don't know
service
what-
and seeing someone up on stage with a little mandolin playing "Losing My Religion" by REM.
Yeah,
I
I
remember
remember that as well.
Wow.
It's-
I don't
think-
remember that, but I love the
I'm
song.
pretty sure it's 2006.
Okay.
Almost positive it's
Okay.
2006. There are many things I don't remember. I can remember what season of the year I preached certain things, sort of the year and the era. it
Interestingly
was.
enough, the song "Losing My Religion" not about religion.
Not at all.
No, at all.
No, but we like the title.
Well,
It's a
and
classic.
we knew the hook of it. That's the only words that most people know.
That's
the
true.
Song
Yes,
anyway.
yes.
Most people don't know what it's about.
No.
But
We
anyway,
also played Stevie Wonder's "Superstition" in the middle of that.
I remember that.
Please don't
I remember
bring
that.
don't bring back that memory. So, how are we going to approach this topic? Because my question remains: have we decided differently on that? Have we changed our minds, guys?
I think we're probably talking to a different audience.
Yeah.
17 years.
See,
I would
like
agree
that.
with that.
I like
I
that.
think we're probably just speaking
Say
to-
more, Ed.
I think in the time 17 years ago when we were talking about that, most of the people we were talking to, even the people that we would have said we were reaching that weren't going to church, they had a lot of religious baggage.
Yes.
And they came to church. And so we would talk about things about, hey, we got to do things to get them to be interested and to uncross their arms and to get that. We're probably not saying what you think we're going to say.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say, hey, we want you to lose your religion, you need to lose your religion. That was not what most churches were saying. And so we'd send out postcards with things on them intentionally to be provocative to people
Yes.
who had religious baggage.
Yes.
And so that is not the era of religious upbringing most people have in the United States these days because so many people were hurt by religion when they were being brought up in baby boomers.
Yep.
And then Gen Xers were the very next generation. They had a lot of that as well.
Mhm.
Their children, the ones that came after that, they didn't go to church a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
No, the majority. Certainly there were many who did, but the majority did not. So they don't come in with baggage or understanding. And to say to a person outside that didn't grow up that a church is not a religion doesn't make sense to them.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's a different group of people we are speaking to these days. So you say it's not a religion, it's a relationship because Jesus came to offer you a way to have a relationship with God. That was true.
Mhm.
But Christianity is both
Mhm.
a religion and a relationship. You have a relationship with God, but a religion is just a way of doing this thing with God.
Mhm.
Okay.
And
Okay. A methodology, is that the right word?
I would say it's a. Honestly, the way I would say it is a set of practices. I
Okay.
think.
Like that.
which is similar. I would have said yes then I would explain.
I get it.
Yeah. I would say any relationship that you have has a set of practices around it to keep it healthy, to keep it vibrant, to allow it to evolve as you grow and the other person grows, that you have these practices that are set around it to protect it. Relationships that don't, they don't thrive very well. Relationships you say, we're just going to do everything organically. We're not going to put any intentionality behind our relationship. We're just going to see how we feel day by day. Those relationships, by and large, I'm guessing there are exceptions, by and large, those relationships don't do well. And so to be more specific, if I used to say this to teenagers, I would say, if you're dating a girl, you're dating a guy, and you guys go, let's not put labels on this thing. Let's not call each other girl. Let's not commit to one another. Let's not do the practice. I don't want to be, married. This idea of married and I have to come home to you every day. And what you're expecting me to say, I love you every day. You're expecting us to raise kids and be accountable, do our finances together. Well, those are practices. The practice of I come home every day. Every day I come home to you. We share a bed together. I protect the fidelity of our marriage. I'm not going to be unfaithful to you, right? These are practices. I have to put things in place to protect that. If I'm unwilling to do those practices, I'm probably not very committed to you. And it's not the practices that make us married, because there are a lot of people that come home to the same person every day and they're not married. And they do a lot of the same. It's not the practices that do. The practices, and so in this case, the religion that's around it, they are ways to reinforce the commitment I have made to this person.
And there are some historical ones of that with Christianity. But I'd go on the analogy that Nathan was just using, and they go back to why 17 years and the years before that, and the way Western Christianity had been brought in the United States. A lot of people were done damage by religion, because religion became a way to define whether you had a relationship or not. And people would say, hey man, if you drink,
right,
you're not a Christian. If you have long hair at a certain time in my life,
I remember that.
you can't be a Christian. And people were taking these practices that had been historical with Christians they knew, attaching them to Christianity, and it became a religious kind of connotation to it. And people said, man, it ain't none of that. It's a relationship with Jesus. So they wanted to get rid of all of the bad rules. But the problem with that is, to a degree, which often happens, the pendulum swung and people said, I have a relationship. I don't have any practices.
Yeah.
I don't have any structure around this. But I did say a prayer when I was 6.
So it's one of those situations where we were trying to correct an error, and
That's what I think.
and we swung the pendulum all the way to the too far.
That's exactly right. And so I meet a lot of people my age now who, when they talk about it, I go to church, what they say it to me, and again, I'm 64 in a month. And I go, hey man, where do you go to church? They go, well, I went to church. And I go, when I ask them where, they go, well, when I was in Vacation Bible School. And I'm like, dude, that's got to be 50. You didn't go last week, I don't think. Because you're 60.
Yeah.
But they said a prayer. They established what they thought was a relationship. They haven't had much to do with that in a long time.
Yeah.
They're still counting on that because somebody told them it's just that, it's not this.
Yeah. And I think that's the nature of when you get down to it. So I know that this question, at least, I think has been in some of the three of our minds as we've been preparing, and we just have started at the time of filming this series, Rooted, that we've been in, and we've been talking about the creeds, and especially the Nicene Creed, right? But there's also the Apostles' Creed, which is another kind of ancient creed that
much easier to memorize.
The Nicene Creed. Nicene Creed is pretty darn long.
I do not. I have the Apostles' Creed memorized. That other one, man.
Let's be honest. The reason you and I have the Apostles' Creed memorized
Rich
is because the guy we love
Thanks,
plays the
Rich.
music and we can sing it.
Partially, yes.
But you look at these creeds, and I think for most people, I'll just say this: I grew up at Community Christian Church. I've heard that song played at Community Christian Church.
Yeah.
I can think of. I wrote a script one time that we did twice, where we recited the Apostles' Creed. Outside of that, creeds were not really part of our stream, as it's often called, of Christianity.
Yeah.
So, again, having been here 33 years and gone through a lot of iterations, I taught a form of the creed as the second series in this church at White
Wow.
Oak Elementary.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just didn't tell anybody that's what I was doing because I knew it wouldn't have reached the people I wanted to
Right.
reach. But I taught the things in it because we were trying to start a church and I wanted to make sure we were all on the same page.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
I still have the notes on it. They're all terrible.
Yes.
Right.
I would not teach them again.
Right.
I then, when we moved into this building, and we moved in Christmas Eve 1999, in June of 2000, I taught a similar thing again about what do we believe about God? What do we believe about Jesus? What do we believe about the Holy Spirit? What do we believe about the Bible? I taught all of that again. Again, did not say I'm
Right.
teaching you these things because it was a different time. But all the stuff we've taught at different times in different ways. The reason eventually I wanted us to just be open about the creeds is, again, the time that we're in. I know that for some people in our church that are my age and older and who have again, low church, which means we don't have a lot of liturgy, doesn't mean we're uneducated. I don't want somebody.
Right.
I used that a couple of weeks ago, and somebody said, "I don't think of us as being a low." I don't mean we don't have seminary degrees. We don't study. We don't do that. It just means when it comes to liturgy and form and structure,
It's not clearly stated.
It's not as clearly
Yeah.
stated as it is when you're going to go into this church and they're going to say this liturgy first and sing a song and then say this prayer.
Yes.
That's a high church.
Yes.
I wanted it to be open because there is a question these days where everything is on the table and you can go to YouTube and you can find anybody talking about anything, that we're talking about a historical faith that has been handed down through the years, and that these things of what we believe, these aren't things that I created, Jason created, you created, and that have these aren't new to Community Christian. These are historical truths that came the generation right after the apostles began to put borders around this, because as they grew, things began, what happens with human beings is things begin to start getting a little off to the edges, and somebody has to begin to say, no, that's not what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the creeds came from. I think in the first week, which we had trouble microphones, so it's not even available on our YouTube channel because the recording of it was terrible. I talked about they're like the bumpers on a
Bowling alley.
on a bowling alley, or they're like a rope that's tied to an anchor somewhere that holds you to the core. That's the nature of the creed. They aren't supposed to replace anything in the Bible. They are to keep you so that when a common person begins to read the Bible, which that's when they were first created, the Bible's now decided on, you have these documents, and a person begins to read and have those taught to them, somebody don't go, I think this verse means this, and it's totally off in left field. It doesn't really matter what you think this means. This is what the apostles mean. It's in this lane. And your understanding of that has to stay in these lanes.
And I think there's an important part of religion. You bring up Rich Mullins' song Creed, and I think the most important part of that song is the part where he says, I did not make it, it's making me. It's the nature of what religion does, and we don't realize this. All of us by nature, and I've heard N.T. Wright, who's a scholar, talk about this before, is we have a concept of religion like you choose, this is my worldview and this is what I'll have, he said. But, historically, no one really had that. He said, he talked about when the missionaries went to India, they had to convince the Indians they had a religion called Hinduism because to them, that's the way the world worked.
Yes.
This was just reality.
That's right.
And I've recently been reading, this is your Dallas Willard thing for today. I've been recently reading a book about the formal theology of Dallas Willard, because he never wrote like a formal theology thing, but it's a person who's taken all of Dallas's teachings and writings, and he's kind of created an academic thing around what did Dallas Willard actually kind of think about all of this stuff. And one of the things, for Dallas with a lot of this stuff, when he talked about faith, he says faith, there's a difference between knowledge and faith. He says knowledge is you can know something to be true, but not actually have faith in it. And he said faith is your person getting in line with reality.
Mhm.
He goes, so, and here's an example. I don't think it's the one he uses. This is one I just have. All of us know, no one has a doubt, if you eat lower calorie foods and exercise, you will lose weight. The faith part is when you live according to, and you trust my life will be better if I live in accordance with the knowledge that I do have.
Mhm.
Okay? So with that kind of thought, religion, these practices, it is me putting myself into the flow of the way that God says, this is the way I show up and I work.
Yes.
Jesus said that the Spirit of God's like the wind. It's unpredictable, but you can't always see it, but it's going to show up. But you know what's true about the wind? I was just on a cruise ship for 6 weeks.
I know how to find it.
I know places to put myself
right.
where it's going to be windier.
Mm-hmm.
Where I know if I'm on a cruise ship and I'm out on the ocean, it's going to be windy. I said that to one of my daughters.
Yes.
They go, I don't like it. It's blowing my hair. And I said, what'd you think was going to happen when you walked out on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean? Well, they didn't know. But I said, now they do because they've experienced it.
It's like that old thing that I've heard for years, and we've all heard it, is, I'm a Christian. I just don't do the church thing. And the three of us can attest, I know that not every time I show up at church,
right,
that I get a true moment of connection with God. But I know this, I don't get it like I get it at church any other place.
That's right.
Like this past Sunday, it was the oddest thing. I'm thinking about other things, but I'm standing in the auditorium with the body of Christ, and we're singing. And something about one of the lyrics just crawled all over my body. Yeah. And it in that moment, the Spirit blew as the wind. And I caught the wind in my sail.
That's right.
It did something in me that I could not have done any other way and could not have manufactured. And so what you're saying is these practices that we have, they are our way of setting our sails out.
They are. And some days the wind doesn't blow in the direction I thought it would.
That's right.
But my job is to go out as much as I can going, I want to throw these where I know the wind has been, and here's the benefit that we have. People talk a lot about what God promises. What Jesus did promise is, he says, where two or more are gathered in my name, I am there. Yep. Now, he doesn't tell us what he's going to do when he's there. No. He doesn't tell us what it's going to feel like when he's there, but he said, I'm going to be there. And so gathering together as a church is a historic practice of the Christian religion, that if I am a Christian, I gather with the church. There are other things. I worship, right? Communion, baptism. There are these things that we see.
I read the scripture.
Reading the scriptures, prayer. We're actually going to have a series after this one about the Creed about here are these historic kind of, and there's a lot more than just the ones we're naming, but these are kind of the ones that if you went to any church around the world and you said, hey, even if you went to China, you said, what would it look like for me to gather? Well, they're going to gather at some point, right? They're going to probably pray at some point. There's going to be worship at some point.
There's going to be baptisms.
When someone makes a decision,
communion at some point.
That these things are going to happen. And those are our ways, and there are different analogies theologians throughout the years have used, but it's our way of setting our sails and going, Jesus said, I'm going to show up when you guys are together. And the scriptures talk about God riding in on the praises of his people, right? When we worship, he shows up, that there's a way in the body and blood or in the bread and the juice, right? Or the wine, that Jesus is present with us. And I go, I just want to put myself in those places, just like I, as a husband, there are things I do every day for my wife. And if I go back to her going, why do I do that? Why do I say those things? Well, it's because for us, and there are ways at Community Christian, we're a little different in our stream because of our culture, because that are kind of part of the Community Christian version of this religion. Just like my marriage has practices that are different than yours. But I bet all three of us go, at some point every day, I'm probably telling my wife I love her. Yep. At some point, we're going to have that moment. We're going to have regular times, and the regularity may be different. Yeah. Right?
But we're going to communicate somehow.
We're going to communicate. We're going to have a date night. You were talking today about continuing to date your spouse.
Yep.
Right? Like we have practices, the regularity looks a little different than
Sure.
one another, but the fact that it is regular. And what we know is if I want my marriage to be healthy, even if I don't feel like it, I'm showing up on date night.
And whether or not, and back to what we said in the beginning of this Rooted series, whether it works or not.
Right.
Right.
I do it because I'm rooted in something greater
Because sometimes you go on a date and there's nothing special that happens,
no.
but you have to go on those to get to the ones
That
where
do.
something does happen.
I say pretty regularly to my kids because this has been a big part of me because I want to get back to the thing you're talking about of why we're kind of flipping and not flipping, but we're kind of going to this side of the religion relationship side. I know for the culture of people in my generation, millennials, younger than me, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I did youth ministry for a long time. I still love it. Many Sundays you'll find me hanging out in the youth ministry room because I can't help it. I love that energy and talking with them. Rooted is such a good word for what we're trying to do. There is a rootlessness to younger generations that live. I think it's why I talked about it on our sister podcast, the Not Great Parents podcast.
Yes.
It's why you hear so many shows and movies now, not even like sci-fi stuff, talk about multiverse.
Yeah.
You know, Big Brother this year, which is a reality show, they're doing Big Brother multiverse. The reason why is because not just string theory and all the science behind it. The internet created this world for us where in our minds, anything should be possible.
Right.
Dating apps because I should be able to find the perfect spouse that will complete me and fulfill me and make me happy and all the things. There is a perfect version of my life that exists. And therefore, all options are equal options. All ideas are equal ideas, which sounds really good and really open-minded. Except white supremacy also is an equal idea in that world. And all of us would go, no, outright, let's throw that one out the window.
Arsenic also is a naturally forming organic material that will kill you.
Yes.
But you're not going to find it in an organic restaurant. But it is organically grown.
All ideas are not equal.
That's right.
And so I regularly say to my kids, they'll say, so why are we doing this? And I say, because we follow Jesus.
Yes.
And I'll explain to them why he said, but I don't go, because it's really nice to take care of people. And I may go into, hey, this is why Jesus says to do it. But they know the answer, which is why I said on a couple of podcasts ago, they said to one of my daughters, you're sounding like daddy. Everything has something to do with Jesus. And I just say to them all the time, why do we do this? Because we're Christians. And this is what it looks like to be a Christian. And I want it to be clear to you. And I said, my wife and I say it regularly, is so that one day, if you don't choose to follow Jesus, it won't be because I didn't make clear to you what it looks like. You'll at least know for clear, I'm rejecting this, not rejecting some false version that you come up because all ideas are somehow equal and you just came up with your own version of it. This is what it looks like to follow Jesus. We forgive when people wrong us.
Right.
We give. We're generous people. We live on less than we make so that we can give. This is what it means historically to be a Christian. We take care of the poor. We go to church on Sundays. All of these kind of things. This is what we do not because it makes us feel good, not because it works, because forgiveness don't feel like it works.
No.
It takes a long time for forgiveness to feel like it works.
Yep.
But we do it.
Exactly. So we're running out of time. So to put a bow on this, how do we bring this to one final statement?
I think the reason that people need to think about it differently, well, the reason religion is helpful for you is because there inevitably in every relationship and everything you do comes dry seasons. There comes times where it didn't work the way, and by most of us when we say it worked is it made me feel better.
Yes.
It made my immediately I knew I had done the right thing because XYZ. There were not always good consequences that come to you immediately from doing everything that you should do. The reason a pattern, a way of doing that is historically true is that this has proven through the ages, this is the way of Jesus, and long term, it is the way that is helpful to your life. And I'll just say, and I think all of us I mean, you know, I've been a Christian a long time. You've been a Christian a long time. You've been a Christian a long time as well. I am not the same person I was when I first began to follow Jesus. And who I am now, who I really, I like who I am now. I would not have chosen to be this person when I first started following Jesus. If you had said to me, hey, Ed, 40 years from now, you're going to be like this, and this, and I go, yeah, man, that ain't never happening because I ain't going to let that happen.
Mm.
But over time, by doing the things that the church has historically put patterns around that I do, I've become a person that I am so grateful that God has made me into. And that's the benefit of it. When you're just out there looking for the next spiritual high, because I prayed a prayer, I went to this concert, or I sang this song, or I heard this thing, and I did this thing, and I went over there to get that, which is a lot of Christian culture these days.
Yeah.
I don't commit to one group of people. I don't commit to one body. I'm not committed to these people, where sometimes requires for me to serve and sacrifice, and I'm giving to them and they get something, but I didn't get anything immediately. I don't become the person that long term becomes more like Jesus, who, you know, sometimes you have to die.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of required.
It's a part of it.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. And
so that's what he's offering.
It's the part of that nobody gets when they begin to say, I want all things are equal. I was thinking of that when you were talking about that. All things are equal, and I want the thing that works for me. Dying doesn't work for me.
No.
But it is required to become what God wants me to be. And not just when I'm old and dead and physically dead.
Every day.
I must die to myself in little ways to become who God wants me to be.
So, on that vein, next week, we are going to take this another step further, and we're going to talk about in terms of religion has practices. We sort of established that. So we're going to start talking about some of these practices that are a part of being a follower of Jesus in this religion that we're all part of.
Talk about another word that we don't talk about much,
sacraments. So hold on to that word. We're going to talk about sacraments next week. And for those of you who are scared, no, we're not Catholic. But we are sacramental.
We do believe in the one Catholic Church.
Oh, yes. That's in the creed.
Small c.
That's in the creed. All right. So come back next week. We will talk sacraments. And for those of you who don't know what they are, we'll learn something. So have a great week. See ya.